What happens when the world's richest man gets unprecedented access to the inner workings of the US government? It's like a black box machine with hidden levers, publicly celebrated for cutting waste while potentially draining resources behind the scenes. White House officials tout that Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency has eliminated $160 billion in waste. Meanwhile, the Partnership for Public Service estimates DOGE's actions, including mass firings, paid leave, and productivity hits, will cost taxpayers $135 billion this fiscal year alone. Yale Budget Lab projects IRS cuts will forego $323 billion in tax revenue over the next decade. Is this efficiency or something else entirely? Before we dive in, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest content. The shrinking savings, examining DOGE's claims. When Elon Musk first announced the Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, he promised to identify a staggering $2 trillion in government waste. This ambitious figure represented nearly half of the federal government's annual budget. Yet within months, DOGE quietly scaled back its target to $150 billion, less than 8% of the original goal. This dramatic reduction raises questions about the initial estimates and the methodology behind them. According to DOGE's official website, the initiative has successfully eliminated $160 billion in government waste and fraud. White House press releases proudly cite this figure, claiming unprecedented success in government efficiency efforts. However, a closer look by NPR challenges this rosy picture. After examining the specific claims and contacting the relevant agencies, NPR could verify only $63 billion of the claimed savings, less than 40% of DOGE's publicly stated achievements. When pressed for evidence supporting the remaining $97 billion, DOGE representatives pointed to their wall of receipts, a digital repository of documents resembling a cluttered attic of unverified evidence supposedly validating these savings. Independent fact-checkers who analyzed this documentation found significant issues. Many claimed savings were based on projections rather than actual cuts. Others counted normal budget adjustments that would have occurred regardless of DOGE's existence. Some documents contained basic accounting errors, like double-counting savings across different line items or misrepresenting one-time savings as recurring annual amounts. The BBC conducted its own analysis of DOGE's 5 largest claimed savings and found all 5 contained major overstatements. For example, DOGE claimed credit for $14.8 billion in Defense Department contract renegotiations that began 2 years before the initiative existed. In another instance, DOGE counted $8.3 billion in Medicare fraud prevention that was actually the result of previously established programs. The Texas Migrant Processing Facility case illustrates DOGE's problematic accounting methods. The initiative claimed to have saved taxpayers $2.9 billion by canceling this project. Yet government records show the actual allocated budget was only $153 million. When questioned, DOGE officials argued they were including lifetime operational costs, essentially using a ruler that changes length with every measurement. Similar discrepancies appear throughout DOGE's portfolio. They claimed $1.2 billion in savings from canceling an IRS IT modernization contract valued at just $287 million and $6.4 billion from eliminating redundant education grants without evidence of duplication. Former DOGE staff members, speaking anonymously, described a culture where finding waste often meant identifying ideologically targeted programs, then working backward to justify cuts. One former analyst revealed they were instructed to be creative with projections and prioritize headline numbers over accuracy. The Congressional Budget Office has been notably absent from DOGE's process. When asked why, DOGE representatives stated they had developed more innovative accounting methods than traditional government analysis could support, a concerning statement given the CBO's reputation for rigor. While DOGE's savings claims increasingly appear questionable under scrutiny, the initiative's impact on government operations is undeniably real. Thousands of federal employees have been terminated, programs canceled mid-implementation, and entire agency divisions restructured. The question now becomes, what are the actual costs of these changes, and do they truly represent efficiency or something else entirely? The hidden costs, measuring DOGE's true impact. The contradiction at the heart of DOGE becomes clear when we examine its real-world impact. While claiming to eliminate waste, the initiative itself has generated substantial new costs for taxpayers. The Partnership for Public Service, a nonpartisan organization that analyzes government effectiveness, conducted a comprehensive assessment of DOGE's actions and their financial consequences. Their findings are striking. DOGE's operational changes are projected to cost American taxpayers approximately $135 billion in the current fiscal year alone. These costs stem from multiple sources: tens of thousands of federal employees on administrative leave receiving full salaries without working, productivity declines across agencies due to widespread uncertainty, cascading inefficiencies from interrupted services requiring costly workarounds, and operational damage from institutional knowledge loss that will take years to rebuild. Consider a 30-year veteran of FEMA who took early retirement rather than face reassignment. When the next hurricane hits, he warns, response times will be measured in days, not hours. With FEMA operating at 35% reduced field personnel heading into hurricane season, his concern represents the human toll behind the statistics. The Internal Revenue Service presents perhaps the most financially consequential example. DOGE mandated a 40% reduction in IRS workforce, claiming this would eliminate bureaucratic waste. However, the Yale Budget Lab projects these cuts will result in approximately $323 billion in lost tax revenue over the next decade through fewer audits of high-income taxpayers, reduced enforcement capabilities, and diminished technical infrastructure to detect tax avoidance schemes. Tax compliance depends on the government's ability to verify returns and enforce payment. When enforcement capacity decreases, non-compliance increases, particularly among wealthy taxpayers with complex financial arrangements. The Treasury Department estimates that for every dollar invested in IRS enforcement, the government collects between $5 to $9 in owed taxes. Across other agencies, DOGE has terminated numerous effective programs. The Department of Education lost $842 million in STEM education grants for underserved communities. The USDA saw $1.3 billion in rural development contracts canceled, including critical broadband expansion in agricultural regions. EPA lost environmental monitoring programs that prevented an estimated $5.2 billion in public health costs annually. These cuts directly impact Americans in rural Kentucky, whose community's promised internet infrastructure was canceled mid-installation. Our kids can't compete without reliable internet, a resident explains. This wasn't waste, it was our future. To date, over 100,000 federal workers have been fired or accepted early retirement, creating critical staffing shortages in essential services. Veterans Affairs medical centers report appointment wait times increasing by 47%. Social Security Administration offices have reduced public hours by 30% due to staffing constraints. Privacy advocates have raised additional concerns about DOGE's unprecedented access to sensitive government databases across agencies, ostensibly to identify waste patterns. This has created what former intelligence officials describe as a potential master database outside normal oversight mechanisms, prompting multiple Inspector General investigations. Examining DOGE's actions rather than its rhetoric reveals a consistent pattern. Programs targeted for elimination disproportionately focus on environmental protection, social services, education, and regulatory enforcement, while spending aligned with certain political priorities remains largely untouched. This suggests DOGE functions as a mechanism for implementing specific ideological preferences outside the normal legislative process, effectively conducting a massive restructuring of government operations without congressional authorization or public debate. Conclusion: what DOGE ultimately reveals is a critical lesson in government accountability. When efficiency initiatives operate without transparency or oversight, they become perfect vehicles for advancing political agendas disguised as reform. The evidence presented throughout this analysis points to a troubling conclusion. DOGE's actual impact directly contradicts its stated mission, potentially costing taxpayers hundreds of billions while claiming to save them money. What do you think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.